to focus solely on the trackpad and the keyboard of the old Lenovo ThinkPads versus the new Lenovo ThinkPads. I did a long, drawn-out video on this, but this is something that's such a clusterfuck that it deserves its own shorter video that people are more likely to actually watch. So let's focus on the trackpad first. I'm going to try to focus as much as I can on the objective things, not the opinionated things, just the things that are actually true, that cannot be changed, that are technical, because there are certain matters as to whether you prefer a trackpad or a trackpoint, whether you like a large trackpad versus a small trackpad. I just want to focus on the basics of design and pointing out why it is Lenovo's designers who decided to make this instead of this are completely fucking retarded. So let's start with how your hand rests on the keyboard. My hand rests on a keyboard like this, so I'm typing, and here's my track point right here. Now, one thing you may notice is that even when I am touching the middle click button, so I can scroll, as you can see here, my finger is touching the right mouse button because I'm doing this at an angle. See, I don't use the track point like this, nor do most sane people. We all kind of use it like this. The whole point of the track point is that we're always touching the keyboard. We're never away from being able to work, and unless you have some sick finger configuration, this is the way it is. Now, here's why this is important. You see how this has separate buttons? You got your left, your middle, and your right. You see how this has no separate buttons? Here's why this is a clusterfuck. Now watch this. My thumb is touching the right one, but pressing the middle one. And as you can see, regardless of how much my finger touches the right mouse button, so long as I'm clicking the middle one is the one that is activated. Now, let's move over to this clusterfuck here. Let's go to Slashdot so I can scroll through. I like Slashdot. I've been reading it since I was 13 years old. It's a cool website. Alright, now here's how this one works. Now, if I touch the right click and press the middle, it registers a right click. Let's do that again. If I touch the right click, but I press middle click, it registers a right click. Here's why that's a clusterfuck. As I explained, my hand rests on the trackpad like this. So I'm going to be scrolling up and down. I'm going to try to scroll up and down enough times until this happens by mistake. And eventually, if I keep doing this, I'm eventually going to right click when I mean to middle click. Let's see if I can get it. Here we go. Now, it took me about 13 seconds to get to the point where I'm taking my finger off of it and going down to make an error. Now, I use my computer for about, I would say, at least 3 to 5 hours a day to do various forms of work. So if I'm making one mistake every 13 seconds, can you imagine how many times I middle click instead of left click, where middle click is closing a browser tab? So this is frustrating because I'm often clicking the wrong thing because of the way my hand sits. Now, this is not a subjective matter of what I like. This is an objective matter of my human hand sits on a keyboard and a trackpad like this. Therefore, this finger is always going to be touching one of the other buttons, which is a clusterfuck. Now, the second part of this is that they've enlarged the trackpad. Now notice on this one that the trackpad is smaller. It doesn't look as cool. It doesn't look as much like an Air, one of those. Now here's the whole thing about having the smaller trackpad. See here, where my thumb starts and my palm ends? That is where the trackpad starts. So my palm is not touching the trackpad, meaning I'm not moving shit just, because I'm touching it. Whereas on this one right here, since the trackpad is so big, my palm is decently into the trackpad, which means that I am moving the mouse around if I'm moving my hand around. Now, there are ways to, set up the heuristics in Linux, and the Windows driver does a decent job of stopping this, but do you know what the best way is to stop the mouse from moving when my palm is touching it? To create a trackpad that my palm does not touch through a good ergonomic design. And that's what the people who designed the old ThinkPads did, that the people who designed the new ThinkPads did not. So, in order to use this properly, I have to put my hand into something called the claw. Let me show you what that is. The first thing I have to do is move my thumb like this, because there is no mercy, there's no forgiveness. If I am touching the right mouse button the slightest fucking bit, when I middle click, I right click. And if I'm touching the middle button, even a tiniest bit as I left click, I middle click and I close the fucking window. So there's no more this. That's gone. There's no more clicking like this. I have to click like this. I have to click with a sick form of precision, which requires that my thumb be perfectly vertical. So I have to bend it like this. The second thing I have to do is lift my palm a little bit off of the touchpad. So I have to do this first, Now, since my hand is lifted off of the touchpad, my thumb has to be extended more in order to actually reach the buttons. So I have to stretch my thumb like this and stretch my hand. I have to bend my finger, and then I have to lift it off the touchpad, which results in what I call the claw. And after you spend about 45 minutes with the claw, you start to feel bad for people who have arthritis. You start to wonder if maybe you have arthritis, because that's what it feels like when you use your hand in this claw position for this period of time. And this is a fucking fail. You can tell me all you want about how they polled people, and they had focus groups, and they had ergonomic designers try to come up with a foofy nice design, but no, it doesn't fucking work. It results in a hand that feels like it has arthritis, whereas this results in me being productive. Now, let's talk about the keyboard on this clusterfuck. Honestly, this is a really cool keyboard. The chiclet, it feels good. The numbers feel great. The letters feel great. It kicks the crap out of this. Here's why. 2 reasons. First, it's more sturdy. If you're banging away on this, the keyboard never goes down. Whereas if you're banging away on this, let's see. You can see, so look at the shift key. As I'm banging away, the shift key is going down, the enter key is going down. This is not as sturdy a keyboard. Don't get me wrong, it's durable. You can spill water in here and it's not going to destroy the computer. This is a good keyboard. This is better. So why am I bitching? Well, in spite of the fact that you have these curved keys, in spite of the fact that you have a more sturdy keyboard that allows it to feel like it's hugging your fingers as you type, they changed the layout and fucking destroyed it. Let me show you what I mean. You see how this looks? To anybody who's ever used a desktop computer, this looks familiar. This looks like a standard desktop computer. And most people who are using laptops are accustomed to having used a desktop computer. So when you use a keyboard like this one that's exactly the same as your desktop, you can just get to work and feel productive. It's not like, oh, I'm on a laptop now. I'm going to be slower because I'm on a laptop now. No, with this, you're as productive as you would be on a desktop. With this, it's, oh, I'm on a laptop now. I have to get used to it. I'm going to make typos. I'm going to type slower. Because this is very, very different. Now, a lot of people out there, even the people who agree that this is not standard and accept that it's not standard, there are still a lot of people that will say, well, when you get used to it, it's better. The only reason you like this is because it's the layout that you're used to, and this one is not the layout you're used to. I disagree there. I believe this to be a superior layout. Here's why. Let's say I'm typing along on the keyboard and I'm typing and I need to hit the end key. Well, how am I going to find the end key? Most of these keys up here feel the same, but the delete key is different. So I'm going to feel around for my delete key, and subconsciously, somewhere where I don't even have to think about it, as soon as I feel the delete key, I instantly know home and end and page up and page down are right there. The delete key is larger in size and feels very much different from these keys. Since it feels so much different, I can find it without thinking. I feel it and I instantly know that that's different. So I know that, okay, above and to the right of the funny feeling key is home, above and below to the funny feeling key is end, and to the second to that is page up, and the second one away from the funny feeling key is page down. So it allows me to easily navigate to the keys that I very commonly use. Let's look at this machine. What do you know? The F12 is the same as the home is the end is the end is the same as the insert. I no longer have a reference key. I no longer can browse up here and say, okay, now I know that my home is right next to this one, because all of these keys feel the same. What I have to do is go outside of the keyboard to feel the delete key, which, again, this delete key is the same in height as my backspace. Well, not the same, but very similar. It's not like the difference that you have between this and this. This here is the same as all these others. This here is the same as all of these others. And the result of that is that I have no way to navigate up here and tell which one is home, end, insert, F12, unless I go outside the keyboard and find my delete key. So while here, I don't have to leave the keyboard while typing to find keys that are important to me, here, I have to do something like this. So I have to go around and over here, and that sucks. Or, even worse, I have to look at it. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, you have to look at the keyboard while you type? If you're typing pages and pages of content, if you're editing scripts, if you're doing anything where there's a lot of text involved, a lot of typing involved, and you correct yourself, this is a pain in the ass. It adds to the pain in the ass of the keyboard, and it's annoying. So I have to go outside of the keyboard now to know where I am. Another thing that sucks, volume keys. Now, I understand the desire to make this a smaller laptop. I'm for it. I'm not one of those people who says, I hate new ergonomic design. I hate making things slimmer. I'm for making things slimmer. I don't want to carry around a fucking brick. And one of the reasons I wanted to keep this machine instead of this machine is that it feels better, it looks better, it's lighter, and that's a big part of why I like it. But at the same time, you can't tell me that there's not room up here for volume buttons. See here how I have volume buttons? You can't tell me that doesn't fit here. This would easily fit here, or 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 right next to this button right here. There are many places to put volume buttons, and they decided to integrate them into the function keys. Well, what does that mean? I have the choice between being able to do things like Alt F4, which, oh, by the way, I didn't even know I'm not on function lock right now, so I can't, or volume up and down. So I use volume very often, so I choose to have the function keys off. But what happens when I want to quit a program? I can't Alt F4 anymore. I have to function Alt F4. Now, what's to you seems simpler? Alt F4 or function Alt F4? This, I swear to God, this looks like one of those sick guides on the internet on how you're supposed to, finger somebody for the first time. Like, what the fuck is this? I don't want to do this. This is bullshit. And that's the way I'm supposed to hit function keys on this laptop. And I know I'm not your average user. Your average user doesn't use function keys, but I do. People who use computers that say this on them use their function keys. And when you see this on a computer, you expect to be able to not have to choose between whether you want your volume to go up and down and whether you want to quit a program using Alt F4, change your boot order using F12, leave the GUI using Control Alt F3. These are all things I do on a regular basis that I want to be able to do. And they took it away from me. Now, all of these changes I understand because there's compromise. You got a bigger trackpad. I understand there's people that want that, even if it means you sodomize these buttons. I understand that you wanted to make the keyboard smaller, and you did that through removing a layer of function keys. You did it through the volume keys, and you did it through mutilating my delete key. But one of the things that there is no compromise for, where there was no compromise, is removing the media function keys. Here, I can decide to play music or stop music, or go from the previous track or the next track using these combined with the function key. Here, I cannot. Here, the only compromise I imagine were the cost savings of maybe, 20 cents for putting the fucking paint on the key? What do you have to lose? Why in God's name would you take away my ability to play or stop a track without being in the program? I like being able to skip over Ken Kniff on the Marshall Mathers LP without having to go back to the program. It's embarrassing when I'm at work and my favorite song is ending and it goes into a fucking blowjob. And while it's on this computer, when this happens, when you hear the from Ken Kniff come on, I can easily just go to the next track before anybody hears it. On this computer, I have to awkwardly navigate to Praga the music player, move over to the next track with this fucked up ass shit, and click next. And you know what happens when I click on the next track? It doesn't register because I didn't left click, I middle clicked, and everybody at work thinks I'm listening to gay porn. That's what happens when you use the new Thinkpad. It sucks, it's annoying as hell. And some people watching this are going to think that I'm biased in favor of the old ones. You're going to think I'm just one of those curmudgeons that hates everything that's new, that hates everything that's fashionable, that just wants a nostalgic reason to keep my Thinkpad T61 from 2007 until I'm dead. No, I'm not one of those people. I like progress. I'm not a fanboy. I like things that work and function to me. I love this machine, but the second it stops doing exactly what it is I need to do, it will go in the garbage like any other tool. I am biased towards liking this machine. The reason I'm biased towards liking the newer Thinkpad is because deep down, I know that this is not changing. I know that I have to get used to this because this is not going away. Since I know that this will never ever return, I have a good motivation to tell myself through cognitive dissonance that I like this, that this is good, that this delete key is good, that this clusterfuck of a trackpad is good. It's not going away, so I have to get used to it. So I am actually biased towards liking this computer, and I still can't make myself like it. You may wonder, well, why is it not going to go away? They're going to bring it back once they realize everybody hates this new layout. No, they're not. Because there is no way for us to vote with our wallets. You see, if you don't like Snickers, you can always buy Reese's. If you don't like Pepsi, you can always buy Coca-Cola. If you don't like Samsung televisions, you can buy a Panasonic television. But if you don't like this Thinkpad, you can't go to HP and buy a Thinkpad. You can't go to Dell and buy a computer with a waterproof keyboard and a case that is made of some carbon fiber that doesn't fall apart when you drop it off a ladder. You can't go to Acer and buy a computer with the trackpoint buttons and the trackpoint that feels this way. You can't go to Apple and buy a computer that has a delete key and a home and end key that look like this. Fuck, you can't even go to Apple and get a computer that have a separate backspace and delete key on them. There is no place for us to go. And as far as this is from this computer, as far off as this is from the old classic Thinkpad, this is the closest thing there is manufactured in 2014 to a classic Thinkpad. Nobody else makes this. There is no alternative. And as much as people will like to say, well, I'll just never upgrade my old one, eventually, yes, you will, because the people using this are engineers or programmers, or people working with AutoCAD or doing things where they need a modern computer. A lot of people using the Thinkpad line need to upgrade. They need to be able to do new things, which requires newer hardware. And some people like me, admittedly, may be able to get by with this, but just kind of like having something that's newer, that is faster, that has a much better screen on it. And eventually people are going to upgrade. And you have no choice. You can't vote with your wallet. You don't get to buy the Apple Thinkpad. You don't get to buy the Dell Thinkpad. As a result, this is the only choice. So people will buy this. And as a result, the sales will not go down. Since the sales of these products won't go down, Lenovo will have absolutely no reason to change any of these design changes. They'll continue fucking with it as much as they want until people stop buying it. So as long as this is close to this, Lenovo has absolutely nothing to worry about. So I am biased towards liking this new design because I know that it's going to be around and I know that I have to get used to it. And in spite of that, I still hate it. It still tortures me. It still wastes a lot of my time. I still close windows I don't want to close. I type things that I don't want to type. I delete things I don't want to delete. And it just frustrates the shit out of me. And there's really not much that we as Lenovo users can do about it, unless we all stop buying their products altogether. But since we like using computers and we like having new things, that most likely won't happen. And this will just rest in peace as something that, we Google image search every now and then to see what the classic keyboard design was like, of the last manufacturer of a real laptop keyboard, of a real laptop trackpoint. It's sad.